All right. Well, welcome everybody to the podcast this week. We have a special guest today that I'm so excited to have. Her name is Laurel Huston, and she's a creator of body mapping. So I know if you've been following me or listening, you know her name, but now you actually get to meet her. So welcome, Laurel.
Hello, Jamie. I'm really excited to be here.
Oh, well, thank you so much. So we're just going to dive right in. So will you just tell us a little bit about yourself and how body mapping even came to be?
So I get asked this question a lot, and the funny thing is as I start to tell it, people can always find their story within my story. So for many of us, we have our own thing that we're insecure about, or that we want to heal, or that we want to improve, or that we want to master. And that really is where body mapping got started, because I was in my late 20s, early 30s, married, first baby, body changing, all the things. And I was already in the personal development world, and everything was about declarations and vision boards. And it was a lot of mindset. But my mindset wasn't necessarily helping me love my body. And
Yeah.
so I wanted to really figure out how to have a different relationship with my body. I do have a degree in psychology and a degree in communication that at the time I didn't quite know what I was supposed to do with, but God does. So he's like, I need you to do this, and it'll all make more sense later. And that's how body mapping was created.
I
Body
love that.
mapping is a combination of if when people are like, "Oh, is there a book?" Well, there's a manual that I've created for the people that like learn it, but it is a combination of psychological principles, body language, the study of mindset, ancient Chinese face reading, FBI profiling and studying. So it started because I knew about body language, but body language actually comes from the brain. So body language is what's left over when your brain thinks faster than you speak. So people, I laugh all the time because I'm like, well, I don't always speak, but my face is my subtitles.
Right.
So, so that body language is mind. And I thought, okay, well, I then got introduced to energy work and the rabbit hole of that. And so it was like, okay, it's like that helps me understand what my mind is doing, and the sensation or the spiritual part of it. But this is where the randomness comes in. In college, took a lot of classes on breeds and breeding because originally I was going to be an agriculture education teacher. And so I was looking at all the genetics of it and probability. And one of the biggest things that it all came together was, oh, we look the way we look for a reason. And here's why I say that. Out of all of our lines of genetic code, only 15% of our genetic code manifests into our physical being.
Wow.
So out of all of the options of DNA that we have access to, the ones that came into physical form were here because we all have a specific purpose. And none of us came with a manual, but we all have a map written in our features, our size, our shape, our texture, our color of your hair, your height, the shape of your waist to your hips, all of that. It's keys and pieces to help us in our own journey. And so I was searching for my journey, and I was like, okay, how can I figure this out? So art classes, proportion classes, anatomy and physiology. I had to take the study of the mind, the body, and the soul and put it all together. And that's what created body mapping.
I love it. And I mean, I've heard, the story and the history and like the coming together, but every time I'm just always so fascinated because I just love that it is so comprehensive. And that was something that I was really drawn to because I too love studying like everything. And then I'm like, and then let's put it together and see how it all connects because it's just so cool. It's all interrelated, right? And so that really was body mapping to me when I started hearing how you put it all together. I was just like, yes, there is so much. And like you said, we all kind of start with like our own journey. Like, what is it that we're wanting to heal with us? And so What would you say has been the most life-changing thing for you personally in the creation and discovery of body mapping?
Ooh, for me personally, it's probably actually being able to redefine my relationship with my body. Because instead of seeing my body as an obstacle to overcome, it became a partnership to understand. Because there's body language, but there's the language of your body, and they're very different. Body language is movement, but the language of your body is through sensation, through symptoms, through texture changes. And so the more that I was able to connect to my body and connect to sensation, that's when I really started to have healing, because many people have heard the phrase, you have to feel to heal. So we think about, oh, I feel sad, but we don't actually allow ourselves to trust the sensation in our body, to feel the sensation of sadness. And so body mapping really helped me reestablish my relationship with my body, because I stopped comparing my body to everyone else's. For those that have followed Jamie, it's all based on measurements and proportion and your measurements against your measurements. So my thumb measures my eye, but it can't measure Jamie's eye. So I can't compare who I am to anyone else and get it right. So I had to get out of comparison. And then I started measuring and I was like, wow, my body is way more in proportion when I stopped comparing. My body is way more perfect than I've ever given it credit for. And then the next step to that was, my body isn't my enemy, it's a messenger. And if I listen to my body when it whispers, it won't scream.
Yes.
So, what is my body trying to tell me? How is it trying to get us to work together in alignment and in attunement instead of just. So, there was a lot of childhood programming, religious programming, gender programming that I really had to work through. And body mapping gave me shortcuts to do that.
I love that. So I feel like I understand that, but how do you feel like the shortcut came about? Maybe that's not the greatest way to word that question, but I want to like dig deeper into that because that was a really cool statement.
So, I'm going to actually use a client as an example. So I had a client, and her whole life she felt like, oh, I have really big feet. So we measured, and her feet were the exact size they needed to be for her body. Like, she was in direct proportion. And so as soon as she learned, oh, wow, I'm in proportion, it was able to be like, oh, okay, so all of the programming you have about your ability to move forward, be detail oriented, that you want a strong, sure foundation, all of other people's opinions about what your foot represents didn't matter as much anymore. And she was able to go, oh, well, this is actually like, my body was created to show up in this certain way. And that's actually the most natural way for me to show up. So now I know the difference between who I am versus who I was taught I'm supposed to be. And that's what I mean by a shortcut. Because you can spend a lot of time in declarations and journaling and all the things, we've done it, to try and find the deep dive. And it's like, just measure.
Yeah. Yeah.
Just look. It's there. It's there and I personally no longer believe that healing is supposed to be hard. And so I'm like, why wouldn't our creator make it really easy for you to understand and know who you are?
Yes, exactly. Yeah. And that is the thing that like whenever I have sessions with people, that is one of my favorite things is like when we do the measurements and then like I explain it and all of a sudden they're just like, wait, I'm allowed to be that way? Like it's okay. Like I can just be me. And I'm like, yes, you get to just be you. And it is so beautiful.
No, I don't know if you've noticed this, but the places that I love to people's noses, because the money and spending and generosity and balance and all the things with the noses. And I tell them that doesn't, like, if you have a generous nose, that doesn't mean you now get to give away all your money and be like, well, my nose said I could. No, it gives you awareness to make better choices.
Yeah.
but it allows you to be like, oh, that's why I initially want to instinctively make that certain choice.
Mhm.
And that's something, the other place that I feel like a lot of people gain a lot of freedom is with the knowledge of their chin and their jaw. Because your
Mm.
chin and your jaw are all about words, your powerful words, how many words you speak, if you're a storyteller versus if you're more to the point.
Mhm.
And so, especially people that have a really square jaw and a really pointed chin, they have they've been told their whole life that they're bold and that they're harsh and that they're very short with their words. And they're looking at you going, and?
Right?
And so to be able to say, well, yeah, the more pointed your chin, the more to the point your words are. And that doesn't mean you're evil. It just means you want the conversation to have a point or you would like to discuss something else.
Yes.
And then also turning around and saying, okay, but if you're talking to someone that has this cute little cabbage patch face, they're not to the point. So if you want to build a relationship with them, you both need to look and come to an understanding and a place of communication where you build each other instead of misunderstand each other.
Yes, yes. And yes, I love that because it really does. It helps with the relationship. Because, like you're saying before, like the relationship with you and your body, you're now working together. You're not like on this battlefield, but also with other people. Because I remember I was at Fire a couple of years ago, and there was a lady looking at one of my drums, and I knew that she wanted it. But she was just going back and forth, but she had a very long nose. And I was like, oh, she's not going to make a decision right now. So I like didn't take it personal. And she came back 3 or 4 times throughout the day and was just like, oh. And I was just like, honey, I know you need some time, but it's going to be gone if you don't grab it. And I did end up selling it to someone else. So then she came back. She was like, oh. And it was like, ooh, we should have a no session.
You're
Just
like,
chat
let
a
me
little.
explain why you just kind of hosed yourself in that moment.
Yes, yes. So I love it. It's information just to help us with our choices and to give us permission to be us, but in a beautiful relationship, whether it's with ourselves or with others. Yeah.
Yes. Well, and you said information is whether we acknowledge it or not, information is the thing that most of us think that we need. What we actually need is integration.
Yes.
And so body mapping, once you have the information, you're like, this is what it is. The second piece to it is the integration piece where you are actually able to be like, oh, I now understand that through, because I tell people symptoms are just messages.
Hmm.
And if you look at the sensations of the symptoms, you'll understand the message that your body is trying to give you. And that is information, not identification.
Hmm.
And so with body mapping, when things are in alignment and they're working great, you don't have symptoms. And when you are going against who you are, I'm going to stick with the nose example. So if you have a really pointed nose and your money has a point and you buy something frivolously on a whim because you were talked into it, you're more likely to get a stuffy nose, whether you have a cold or not, because you went against what is natural for you. And so your body is like, oh, hey, just so you know, we feel like our money cycle is a little stuffed right now. So we're going to give you a stuffy nose. And it's not identification. It doesn't mean that you're bad with money. It means you utilized those resources in a way different than you normally do, and your body is trying to make sure that that's safe to do so. It's just information.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And that's one thing that I always find interesting when I'm talking with people about their nose is I always know who has had sinus issues and sinus infections, and I mean 10 out of 10 I get it right, and it's all I mean not that I want people to have sinus issues, but it's always fun because I'm like, oh, I know you do, and they're like, how did you know? I'm like, because of your nose. It's like, but guess what? I'm going to give you some hope because I healed my sinus issues by learning about my nose, and you can too. Because yeah, it was just these information, my body giving me these sensations to give me information, and now I know the minute I feel anything in my sinuses, I'm like, okay, let's stop. I know that I need to adjust a few things, realign. I'm going to get it, and then it goes right away. And I haven't had a sinus infection in years, and so it's really beautiful, that integration piece. Yeah.
Well, and it also part of the when we, like I said at the beginning, if you will allow yourself, your body to speak to you in a whisper, then it won't scream. But so many of us have trained our body because we have rejected our body or not accepted it as the gift that it is. And so our body is like, you only listen to us when you're hurting. So we actually train our bodies to speak to us through pain instead of pleasure and other sensations. And when you get into the body mapping part of it, and it's like, oh, you have a lot of lower back issues. Well, you also have narrow shoulders. So how often are you taking on burdens or responsibilities that aren't yours to take on? Your body has been trying to tell you for years, we can't shoulder other people's burdens without it affecting us.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not a judgment. Okay, that's the other thing that I love about it. I call it looking from neutral. When you discover, oh, my nose is stuffy, oh, I have lower back pain, instead of being like, what have I done? What do I need to heal? I'm so broken. It's like, thank you for that information. What do I need to do with it now? Because it's not about who you are, it's about what you're experiencing. So if you're like, oh, wow, I've got lower back issues and knee issues because I step out of my power, put other people into authority over me, take on burdens and responsibilities that don't belong to me. Oh, and I have throat issues too. And we're able to be like, oh, well, you need to. And so and Jamie is beautiful at this because I've watched her do it. It's like, oh, well, here is a tool or technique or lift up or let go for you to implement and integrate into your life so that you can start honoring your body so that your throat can heal, because you'll say things like, that doesn't work for me, or the lower back pain will go away because you will feel supported instead of being the only person that supports everyone else. So I tell people there's two pieces to body mapping, because one is learning the gifts, talents, and abilities that you were born with. And the second is learning how the language of your body and the messages that it's giving to you through symptoms to try and get you back into alignment with your gifts, talents, and abilities. And I wasn't going to talk about this, but it feels like it's relative. So if it takes us two sideways, you can bring me back. One of the reasons that I personally have loved learning body mapping is because most people get into the personal development world, and if they get into the energy world at all, they really want to learn about spiritual gifts. And they are missing the part where spiritual gifts show up through the body. So the more you honor and listen to your body, the more spiritual gifts you have access to.
Yes. Ugh. I remember the first time that you connected that for me and shared that, and I was like, oh, yes, I want that. Let's do it. Yeah.
So, and some of them are really easy to see. And so it's like, oh, okay, you've never, one of the examples I use a lot is a lot of people with blue eyes or really, really light brown eyes, as a child had a lot of nightmares because they see more than other people see. And so a lot of times I'll be like, oh, did you have a lot of nightmares when you were little? Because as a spiritual gift, you can see more because you have more lightness to your eyes. So you see the difference between light and dark easier. And so there are many spiritual gifts that we all have access to, but if you hate the part of your body that gift is associated with, you won't use it. So the more you love and honor and understand your body, the more you have access on the spiritual and physical plane to really beautifully create a life for yourself.
Yes. I think so many people need to hear that. And just like you said, a lot of times it's a part of our body that we maybe don't like or don't love or don't really appreciate or just completely ignore. That is like, no, that's actually where the magic is. Let's focus there for a second. And it doesn't mean that we have to have this false sense of oh, I love this part because I'm supposed to. No, that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about there is a deep transformation that happens as you tune into your body. You listen to the sensations, you feel it, you actually listen to your body. you build that relationship where it's not fake. It's not this like sugarcoat, like it's fine. It's like, no. May not be perfect, but there is that deep appreciation and working together. Yeah.
Yes, yes, very much so. And the other part of it is because you start to look at your own body from a place of neutral, um, you go out of judgment towards others and more into discernment, which is a very different thing. And so, because when you're in judgment, there's usually emotion and assumption behind it. But when you are in discernment, there's information and experience that you're able to go, okay, because of the information I'm receiving right now and because of the experience that I've had, my body that I now trust is giving me information that says ABC. So a lot of people like to look externally for a guide, but really the more you connect with your body, the easier it is for you to have your guide. Jamie's heard me say this 10,000 times. Your head is a clock. Your heart is a compass. When you are feeling lost, don't ask a clock for directions. But one of the reasons why so many people will ask their head for answers instead of their heart is because their heart is in their body and they don't trust their body. So a lot of times when people are lost, it's because they don't have a relationship with their body. They aren't connected to their heart, which is your compass. So then they go into their head and they look for evidence, but evidence just keeps you in your same cycles because it has evidence that you survived it. Your head wants to keep you alive, but it doesn't care how well you live. And so the more that you can get into the messages in your body and you're like, oh, my left knee is hurting me. Is, what is it about? What message does my left knee have for me? And how is it going to help me along my path? Instead of I'm in pain, I'm broken. Why did this happen to me? I'm so strong. I lived through this. It's just a very different way that you speak about your life, and about your purpose. That's why I love it. And that's why I teach it, because I want other people to have that too. I
Yes.
know what it was like. I know what my life was like when I didn't. I knew I had purpose, but I was looking for everyone else to tell me what it was. When really I just needed to communicate and connect with my own body.
Yes, exactly. Like, it just feels so good. I'm like, everyone needs this. Everyone needs body mapping in their life. Let's just say that.
I would agree.
So, okay, so Laurel, how can they get in contact with you? I know you have an event coming up in November. Tell us a little bit about that. And yeah.
So November 7th, 8th, and 9th in St. George, Utah. It is called Life Mapping, and it's 3 days, and it is going to be more of a journey. So it's day one is more information. We're going to be talking about, like I said, I have a degree in psychology, so we're going to be talking about the nervous system, how that affects the body and your relationship with your body. Day two, we will be going into body mapping, all the different parts and pieces on the external, your eyes, your nose, your toes, your knees, all the things. And then day three is how to take that and implement it into relationships. So like I mentioned with the chin, like if your partner has a completely different chin than you, it does affect how you guys communicate with each other. And through the whole thing, we will be doing trauma-informed breath work to help you integrate. And so it really is a journey of getting you back into your body, teaching you about how your body speaks to you, and then using that information to improve your relationships with health, with wealth, with intimacy. And it's just going to be a really yummy class. And as you guys can tell from this podcast, I'm not very good at skimming the surface because Jamie's like, answer this really easy question. And I'm like, ooh, but let me dive into the depths of the ocean to answer it for you. So for people who are really wanting to not just get surface information, but it's like, here is the root of what is happening. We're not going to dwell there. We're just going to pull it up from the root so that it's all gone at once. Like we're not just mowing the lawn. We are pulling the weeds and having them be done and gone forever. That is November 7th, 8th, and 9th in St. George. And then, of course, social media, you can find me at Laurel Huston or Reflections Inside and Out on Instagram and Facebook both. Yeah, those are the easiest places to find me.
Perfect. Yes, and I will link everything in the show notes and whatnot. But I just want to vouch for your events, and FYI to everybody, I'll be at this event. So if you want to come hang out with both me and Laurel and learn body mapping and all the good intimacy and wealth, come hang out with us. But yeah, and that's one thing that I love, that you do deep dive, that you're just like, because in with these podcasts, they're usually like 15, 20 minutes. So it is just kind of like the details, the basics, like just to get you really like noticing and aware. But like if you're wanting to go that next level, like this event will be amazing to just really get that deeper dive. So thank you. Thank you for coming and sharing and showing up. I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much for letting me come and share. And thank you for teaching people about this, because I can't do it alone. So I love that you teach and that you share this, and that you are really in your purpose by teaching people how and the different parts and pieces of this. So thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank you. Okay, we'll see everybody next week.